someone here right now. This is Mr. Rusink checking in, office hours on a Saturday, and I'm going to spend a few minutes introducing you to a project called The Wrench. Those of you who are trying to recover credit from Algebra 2, and I may even have some geometry students do some credit recovery with this project as well. I'm going to present to you the project. This will be one of many projects that you may have to do to recover credit. Here come the directions. Okay, so it says in this project called The Wrench, there's the title. In this project, you will investigate the relationship between the amount of force one must exert on a wrench handle to loosen a rusty bolt and the length of the wrench handle. So we have this rusty bolt that we're trying to undo, and we need to figure out how much force we got to put on this wrench to undo the rusty bolt. Here's what we found out. If we have a particular bolt that requires a wrench that's 7 inches long to exert a force of 270 pounds, and on that same bolt, if you take a wrench that's 3 times longer, notice that it requires 3 times less force. Looks like an inverse relationship to me. 7 inches long, 270 pounds. 21 inches long, 90 pounds. So here's what I did. I copied and pasted these directions. And then I opened up a Google Sheet. And I'm going to go to the Google Sheet that I started. Here it comes. Voila. Now you see the new Google Sheet. And I have the directions, once again, about completing this project. And it says, in this project, you will investigate the relationship between the amount of force one must exert on a wrench handle to loosen a rusty bolt and the length of the wrench handle. Suppose that for a particular bolt, a wrench 7 inches long would require a force 270 pounds, and a wrench 21 inches long would require 90 pounds. Here's what I did. I made a little table, and I made X's be the measure of the length of the wrench in inches. So we have a 7-inch wrench and a 21-inch wrench. And according to the word problem, 270 pounds of force is required to undo this rusty bolt if it's 7 inches long. But if you increase the size of the wrench, all of a sudden you don't need nearly as much force. Look, the wrench increased by a factor of 3. 7 times 3 is 21. Notice 270 divided by 3 is 90. The amount of force needed to turn the wrench decreased. And here's something that I noticed. When I multiply X and Y in both cases, I get this number, 1890. That tells me that this is an XY relationship that appears to be an inverse relation. Remember, in inverse relations, K is equal to the product of X and Y. When I take the product of X and Y in this case, I get K equal to 1890. Therefore, I have come to the conclusion that a function can define this situation as Y equal 1890 divided by X. This can help you get started on the project and answer some key questions. I'm going to go back and take a look and see what kind of key questions. All right, here we are looking at the direction document. And so as I scroll through, it looks like in part one, let me get to part one, it says explain the relationship between the force that needs to be applied and the length of the wrench handle. It looks like you can use some information that I provided when I made the Google Sheet document. And if you wish, you can copy and paste that information from the Google Sheet document on your own Google Sheet document to start your work. Bullet point number 2 says derive a general equation that would fit any similar situation to the one described in this problem. You'll see that that work is completed on the Google Sheet right now. Y equals 1890 divided by X is a general equation that would do that. Then bullet point number 3 says write an equation for this particular situation. So, I believe I did the specific equation. If I were to do the general equation, I could go ahead and give that away right now and say the general equation would be y equals k over x. That's the general equation. What we did was a specific equation. And so the particular equation, we wrote y equals 1890 over x. So that would answer the third bullet point. The fourth bullet point says or asks you to explain the concept of torque and how it applies to this problem. So I would encourage you to look up and see exactly what torque means and how it is used in physics, and then explain how it applies in this problem. That gets you started in part 1 of this project. Okay? When you do part 2, what you're going to do is you're going to find the force needed for wrenches with handles of 3, 10, 15, 30, and 60 inches long. So these are the X values of a table that you're going to be making. You can do that on Google Sheets. How long, the second bullet point here, how long a wrench would be needed for Sarasota, who can exert a force of 300 pounds? Looks like it says find the X value if the Y value is 300 pounds. Third bullet point, how long a wrench would be needed by Sarasota's little sister, Minnie, that would be Minnesota, who can exert a force of 50 pounds. Again, the Y value is 50 pounds. What would the corresponding X value be? Meet this criteria and you have completed part 2. It says you will write what you are trying to figure out in this problem, show that you provide clear evidence on the Google Sheet of how you solve the problem, and make sure that your work is well organized so anyone can understand what you did to solve the problem. In part 3, you're asked to make a table using the data you obtained in part 2. Plot a graph of force versus handle length in the domain from 3 to 60 inches. How about if I put in use Desmos.com and share the link to the graph on Google Sheets. Okay? Third bullet point, using the graph, estimate the amount of force needed to loosen the rusty bolt with a wrench 40 inches long. So now the X value is 40 inches. We want to know what's the Y value that would correspond. Using the graph, estimate how long the wrench should be if you apply 315 pounds of force. And describe how close you were on your estimates. To finish this project off, I'm asking you to write a reflective essay to summarize your work. What that means is I want you to write a paragraph that describes what did you do in part one, a separate paragraph that describes what did you do in part two, and a third paragraph that describes what did you do in part three. And each of those paragraphs include a reflection of what did you learn. And then just give your final paragraph just some sort of summarizing paragraph. So you have an intro in your body. You say, what did you do in part one? What did you do in part two? What did you do in part three? And then make a concluding paragraph. And that will make for a good project. You could put that summary in Google Sheets after you have shown your graphs and your tables. All right, I hope that this works well for you. I will be waiting for your project to be turned in a timely manner. Take care.